Welcome to Heartbreak Chronicles. Growing up in the suburbs of Chicago, I always thought that family was the most solid harbor in life. We're not the kind of family that keeps our hearts tucked away or doesn't connect for months at a time. In our house, family dinners every weekend are a thunderous tradition. I remember the aroma of coffee always wafting over the table, mixed with the smell of my mom's freshly baked cinnamon bread. At that time, I was naive enough to think that this coziness could last forever. My relationship with my brother Nathan is typical of brothers who grew up under the same roof. He's a year younger than me, and there's been a subtle rivalry between us since we were kids. Whenever we have guests in the house, everyone always says, "Look how charming Nathan is." Indeed, he was one of those naturally likable types, outgoing, funny, and the center of attention of the crowd wherever he went. He knew how to make everyone laugh with just 3 words, and even the neighbor's serious Mrs. Wilson smiled kindly when she saw him. I, on the other hand, am completely different. Growing up, I was more inclined to be thoughtful and always planned ahead for things. When I was in school, I would prepare for exams a week in advance. When I was working, I always had a notebook full of schedules on my desk. This personality difference is always a topic of comparison for parents. Logan, if only you could be as lively as Nathan. I've heard this a million times, and each time it makes me feel as if I'm an inadequate son. Our youngest sister, Emma, is a special being. From the time she could walk, she was a shadow of her mother, Margaret, always getting all the attention with ease. She had an innate knack for knowing when to give a pathetic look that made everyone's heart ache for her. This skill has not changed even as she has grown older, but has become even more honed. At every family gathering, she always managed to turn the conversation to herself, and everyone was happy to give her attention. My father, Samuel, was a typical Midwestern man, easygoing and never rushed in his speech. His biggest hobby was grilling in the backyard, and it became almost a ritual for him. Every weekend, he carefully prepares the various seasonings as if it were an important science experiment. I often look at him busy in front of the grill and think that's probably the most relaxed he's ever been. He always said, "Life is like a barbecue. The fire has to be just right, the seasoning just right." Now that I think about it, maybe he's right, but alas, once something goes over the top, it can never be undone. Our mother, Margaret, on the other hand, was a perfectionist, and under her stewardship, our home was always meticulous. Even the folding of the napkin has strict criteria. Every angle must be perfect. She always said, "The details make the difference." This quote has influenced me for many years to pay extra attention to detail in everything I do. But ironically, it was those very details that I had always cared about that eventually led me to that horrible truth. Growing up in such a family environment, I thought I had my life perfectly planned out. A warm family, siblings I could rely on, and a fiancé I was sure I would spend my life with. Sarah came into my life during a group program at the University of Chicago. It was a sunny fall afternoon, and the moment she walked into the classroom, the whole room seemed to light up. There was something special about her, smart, confident, and damn pretty. Whenever she opens her mouth to speak, everyone is unconsciously drawn to her. We met by chance, but fell in love as a matter of course. During a coffee date after a panel discussion, we talked for 3 full hours about everything from our major programs to our life aspirations, from our family backgrounds to our future plans. At the time, I didn't think to question anything at all. It all seemed so natural. When she talked about how she also likes to plan ahead, I thought it must be a sign from heaven. Our relationship progressed quickly, as if it was meant to be. By the end of my junior year, we were inseparable. I loved planning the future with her, talking about our career development, discussing how many children we will have in the future, and even planning the decorating style of our house. Whenever I look at her in serious thought, I feel like the luckiest person in the world. We would go shopping at the supermarket together on weekends, and she would always carefully compare the prices of each item. We would cook together, and I found it especially adorable the way she fumbled in the kitchen. I asked her to marry me on a crisp fall November night. There was no special ceremony or any of those romantic scenes I had once envisioned. Just the two of us, sitting on our favorite park bench on a normal night. When I pulled out the ring, her eyes lit up like stars. At that moment, I felt like my life was finally complete. We began to plan our wedding for the coming summer and envisioned the wonderful life that was about to begin. However, life always likes to play jokes on people. On a Friday in March, the company went surprisingly well and I finished all my tasks ahead of schedule. Thinking of surprising Sarah, I bought her favorite Thai food and prepared to spend a cozy evening with her. The moment I opened the door to my apartment, a strange feeling immediately came over me. Her shoes were neatly laid out in the doorway, but the house was surprisingly quiet, with only subtle laughter coming from the bedroom. I tried to convince myself that maybe she was just watching some funny video or video chatting with a friend, but deep inside, a voice kept telling me that something wasn't right. Every step toward the bedroom felt like stepping on cotton, light, yet heavy and suffocating. The moment my hand was on the doorknob, I could even hear my heart beating violently. The moment I pushed open my bedroom door, my world fell apart. Sarah and Nathan were tangled together, the messy sheets on the bed signaling everything. To add to the irony, Sarah is still wearing the same t-shirt I gave her for Valentine's Day with the stupid love heart print on it. The sunlight cast in through the cracks in the curtains, illuminating this image with great clarity. The scene was like a sharp knife, stabbing hard into my heart, every detail reminding me how the two people I trusted the most had betrayed me. Time seemed to stand still in that moment. Nathan looked at me, mouth open, and uttered that most cliched of phrases, "It's not what you think." I just stood there, almost laughing at the absurdity of the statement. How ridiculous. What do they expect me to believe? Sarah didn't say anything, just fumbled with the covers to cover herself, as if that would erase what I was seeing. Her eyes dodged, completely lacking her usual confidence. The funny thing is that I didn't yell and scream or get hysterical and question like they do in the TV show. The evidence is right there in front of us, so what's the point of asking? I looked at Sarah calmly and said, "Pack your shit and get out. I don't want them to see me fall apart." When Nathan tried to explain that it just happened, I interrupted him coldly, "You're dead to me." I turned away, not waiting for any explanation or false apology. The takeout bag was tossed by me at the door, the aroma of Thai food filling the air ironically. Grab your keys and drive to your friend's house. That night, lying on the couch at a friend's house, staring at the unfamiliar ceiling, the weight of reality finally came full circle. My fiancée, the woman I intended to spend my life with, and my own brother, the man I grew up with, they chose to betray me in the cruelest way possible. It's not just about cheating, it's about a complete breakdown of trust. They chose to destroy the things I hold most dear, the bonds of family and faith and love. It was at that moment that I realized that the perfect life I had once planned for this mundane Friday night had fizzled out. There are some wounds that time may heal, but there are some betrayals that change a person forever. The day after I found out about the betrayal, I thought things couldn't get any worse, but reality is always surprising. While I was at work, Sarah packed up her things and moved out of the apartment. Even though I asked for it, I still felt a searing pain when I came home at night and saw all those traces of her belonging gone from the living room. On the dining room table where we used to keep our group photos lies a note. I stared at the piece of paper for a long time before gathering the courage to pick it up. Sarah's handwriting is still as beautiful as ever, but the content makes me cringe. She wrote that she was in love with Nathan and never meant to hurt me, and said something about how she hoped that someday I would be able to forgive them and be happy for them. Happy for them? I almost laughed out loud. I crumpled up the note and threw it in the trash, which is where it should have stayed. The apartment seemed extraordinarily empty with her things missing. I stood in the center of the living room and thought back to all the times we had spent here. We've watched countless movies on this couch. We've made many a dinner together in that kitchen. Now these memories were all tainted, as if they had been cast into sulfuric acid and corroded beyond recognition. A few days later, word somehow reached home. I'm guessing Nathan or Sarah told them, because I had absolutely no intention of bringing it up. My cell phone kept vibrating with all the missed calls and texts from my family. Eventually, it was my mother Margaret's call that broke my silence. "Logan, I can't believe Nathan would do this to you." Her voice was filled with anger. "He's gone too far this time, and I won't let him step foot in this house again." A warmth welled up in me when I heard those words. But I knew my mother too well, and her anger came and went. The reaction of my father, Samuel, was even more disappointing. When I finally answered his phone, he just sighed and said, "These things just happen sometimes." It's like Nathan just accidentally broke a vase instead of destroying my life. His attitude angered me, but more than that, it chilled me. Emma tried to appear supportive, but I could hear the hesitation in her words. "I can't believe Nathan and Sarah are doing this," she said. "But?" There's always a but. I knew she was struggling, between me and the rest of the family. Every time she spoke, her tone was careful to say the wrong thing. Over the next few weeks, I began to avoid calls from my family. I don't want to have to explain what happened over and over again, or hear them excuse Nathan. Work became my only haven, and I put all my energy into the projects on my desk. Overtime became a regular occurrence, and the lights in the office were always on late. My boss, Oliver, noticed the change in me. One evening, when all the other coworkers had left, he came up to my desk. "How have you been? You look preoccupied." I didn't say much, just a vague reference to working on some personal issues. It was at this point that Oliver mentioned the Pittsburgh office. "The team over there is looking for a leader," he said, "and I think you'd be a good fit for the position." The offer came at the right time, like a light in the darkness. Pittsburgh, far enough away from Chicago, far enough away from everything here. I expressed interest almost immediately. When I told my parents I was moving to Pittsburgh, the reaction was very different. My father simply said, "Good thing too. A change of scenery might be just right for you." And my mother reacted as if I had said I was moving to the moon. "You can't just leave us," she cried. "What about family gatherings on weekends? What about Christmas, Logan? You can't leave the whole family behind." I told her I wasn't leaving my family behind. I was just getting away from Nathan. He's not my family anymore. My tone was firm, but I know my mother too well. She says one thing and does another, and she can easily change her position as long as it benefits her. Sure enough, come July, my hunch came true. One night she called and said as if nothing had happened that they had decided to let Nathan move back home for a while because he had nowhere else to go. She said it as if she were discussing tomorrow's weather. It's as if it's perfectly normal to let the person who betrayed me back into the house, while still expecting me to continue to attend Sunday family dinners. I don't even want to hide my anger. "This is the support you're giving me?" My voice shook with suppressed anger. "Letting the man who betrayed me back into the family? He's still my son," she defended herself. "I can't turn him away." "Very well," I sneered. "He is your son, but he is no longer my brother. I never want anything to do with him again." Thus, she began her family unity campaign. She rambled on about how we needed to heal and move forward as a family. But I know that these are just excuses for her to excuse herself so that she doesn't feel too much guilt while accepting Nathan. Family unity? I said sarcastically, "Maybe you should think about who tore this family apart first." With those words, I hung up. After that, I began to deliberately distance myself from my family. Anyway, I've been busy getting ready to move to Pittsburgh. Find an apartment, pack your bags, and organize your new life. Each step takes me further away from that place of betrayal. I know that leaving means somehow letting Nathan and Sarah win, but staying would be worse. Because here, every street, every restaurant, every shared memory is a reminder of what I've lost. You may meet them around every corner, and every familiar place harbors breathtaking memories. Moving away is the only way to start over. When I packed, I found a lot of stuff to deal with. A few small items Sarah left behind, a photo with Nathan, family photos. I threw it all into a garbage bag and didn't even want to look at it more than once. All of these once precious memories are now trash that needs to be cleaned up. Before I left, I cut off almost all contact with my family. No more answering their calls, no more returning their texts. Even Emma's attempts to remain neutral no longer mattered to me. They chose to take Nathan in, and I chose to leave. I don't know what the future holds, but one thing is clear. I'm no longer the good son who always put his family first. From now on, I'm going to live for myself, start over and rebuild my life on my own terms. This time, I won't let anyone's betrayal affect my life. Just when I thought I was finally able to get away from it all, my mother, Margaret, was at it again. One evening in September, She called with that deliberate lilt in her voice that I knew all too well. "Logan, honey, my birthday is coming up, and I really want you to come back." I was silent for a long time. I've pretty much cut off contact with the family since I found out they let Nathan move back home. But now, listening to my mother's pleading voice, I was a little shaken inside. She kept emphasizing that it was just a small family gathering, saying how much she missed me. "It's just us," she said. "I haven't seen you in a really long time." Perhaps because of the sincerity in her words, or perhaps because I still couldn't quite let go of my feelings for my mother, I finally agreed. "Okay," I said, "but I won't stay long." As soon as I hung up the phone, I began to regret my decision. On the drive back to my parents' house, I had too much time to think about the rights and wrongs of this decision. The fall sun poured in through the windshield, warm but not harsh. I told myself it was only for my mother, who had disappointed me, but it was her birthday after all. I even picked up a birthday cake from her favorite bakery on the way, hoping to make a quick appearance and leave. However, as I drove up to the house, I immediately realized I had been duped. There were too many cars parked on the side of the road, and most jarringly, Nathan's blue Ford was parked in the driveway. My hands tightened on the steering wheel, my knuckles white with exertion. For a moment, I wanted to turn around and leave. But I didn't want to give my mother the opportunity to say I'd back down, or use this as a bargaining chip for future moral abductions. The moment she pushed open the door to her home, her mother's face was piled with smiles as if the tensions of the past few months had never existed. "Logan, I'm so glad you're here," she said, giving me a warm hug. Her performance was so contrived. It was like she was acting out an elaborate play. My gaze sweeps across the living room, and then I see them, Nathan and Sarah, sitting on the couch like a normal couple. Sarah was even chuckling at something Emma had said, which made my stomach lurch. I stood still, feeling my blood freeze. "Why are they here?" My voice was low and dangerous. My mother grabbed my arm and pulled me into the living room. Before I could respond, she began her usual sermon. She pressed me into one of the chairs and started going on a long rant about some kind of family healing, saying that Nathan and Sarah had made mistakes, but they were really sorry and it was time to move on as a family. Nathan, this shameless guy, had the audacity to say, "I'm sorry, man, it just happened." He said it like he was talking about spilling a cup of coffee, not betraying his own brother. Sarah chimed in closely, "We really didn't mean to hurt you." Her words sounded even harsher because there wasn't even a hint of a sincere apology on her face. I stared at them, trying to understand how they had convinced themselves to believe such lies. Is it all actually fixable? The very idea is insulting to me. I leaned forward and looked Nathan straight in the eye. "You're such a pathetic brother." Then turning to Sarah, "I hope he will betray you too, preferably with another special gift, an ST. But even if he won't, I'm sure you'll find a new target sooner or later. You're a perfect match." The room was dead silent. Mother opened her mouth to say something, but I didn't give her the chance. I stood up and looked her straight in the eye. "Enjoy your golden boy. Don't ever call me again. This so-called family is dead to me." As I turned to leave, I could hear my mother trying to calm the crowd behind me, saying something about how I'd figure it out someday. Nathan didn't say a word and Sarah just sat there. I got in my car, started the engine, and left without looking back. For the rest of the day, I kept replaying that scene in my mind. I cringed at myself for going to that damn birthday party and for being naive enough to believe my mother. What angers me even more is how they can think that this betrayal can be so easily forgiven. It's as if this was a minor misunderstanding rather than a complete destruction of my trust and feelings. Just when I thought this farce was finally over, my cousin Amy suddenly contacted me on social media. To be honest, we had very few interactions with each other, and the most we did was say hello at family gatherings. So when she messaged me that she was moving to Pittsburgh and needed help, my first reaction was to say no. But on second thought, Amy really hasn't been involved in any family strife, and she probably doesn't even know what's going on. And, as someone who just moved to a new city, I know how important it is to have an acquaintance to help out. Finally, out of sympathy and a touch of guilt, I agreed to help her. However, when I arrived at Amy's new apartment at the address she had sent me, I realized I had once again fallen into a trap. In the parking lot, I could clearly see a moving truck while Nathan and his father were unloading. My hands tightened on the steering wheel, knuckles white, and my first instinct was to turn around and leave immediately. But just then, the front door of the apartment opened and the mother stepped out. She saw me at once and waved as if this was a cozy family reunion rather than an elaborate trap. "Logan, wait." She ran toward my car. I parked the car where it was, but didn't get out. "What's this?" I asked, pointing in the direction of Nathan and my father. With that familiar, pretend everything makes sense look on her face again, the mother began to explain that Amy really did need help and that it was only natural for the whole family to come together to help. Apparently, it wasn't about Amy's move at all, but another trap to get me back to them. Nathan, the professional-level apologetic performer, has his new lines ready. He stepped forward, even squeezing a few tears from his eyes. "Logan, I'm really sorry." His voice trembled like he was in a lame soap opera. "I know I screwed up. I just want to fix our relationship." I looked at him, nothing inside me. These words are just a reprise of his usual ploy, as hypocritical as they were at his mother's birthday party. That's when the father joined in the fracas. "Logan, enough," he said in that condescending tone. "You're tearing this family apart by holding on to your hatred like that. Be the bigger person." That statement was like a fuse that ignited my long-suppressed anger. How dare he say that? He had no idea what it was like to be betrayed by his own brother, what it was like to lose trust in those closest to him. My fist had swung out uncontrollably as he approached to put a hand on my shoulder. The sound of the fist hitting his jaw was extra crisp in the parking lot. For a moment, everyone froze. The father staggered back, covering his jaw, his eyes full of shock. Nathan looked like he wanted to find a crack in the ground, and his mother, unsurprisingly, burst into tears immediately. "Logan," she sobbed, as if I was the one who ruined everything. Nathan mumbled something about too much, but I didn't bother. I turned toward my car, my feet heavy. "Don't follow me," I said without looking back. When I got home, I immediately blacked out Amy's number. I don't care if she's a participant in this trap or an innocent pawn. None of this matters. Later that night, I sat on the couch and tried to make sense of everything that had just happened. I'm not proud of hitting my father, but I don't regret it either. If that's what it takes to get them to understand that I won't be manipulated anymore, so be it. Life is always full of surprises. The days in Pittsburgh gradually got better and better, and the city was like a haven that gave me a chance to catch my breath. I no longer wake up every morning feeling angry or having to worry about meeting those who betrayed me on the street corner. Everything here is new and full of possibilities. I rented an apartment in the center of the city with a view of the entire city skyline from my window. Every morning, I stand on my balcony with a cup of coffee and watch the sun slowly rise, gilding the skyscrapers. These moments of serenity make me think that maybe starting over isn't as hard as I thought it would be. It was here that I met Kelly. It was at a departmental meeting at the company, and she was the new market analyst. Unlike Sarah, who is kind of flamboyant, Kelly has a kind of introverted elegance. As she stood in front of the conference room presenting her data analysis, her eyes sparkled with concentration and her tone was calm and confident. At that moment, I found myself unable to look away. We met naturally, with no deliberate pursuit or overly enthusiastic opening. It all started with a chance encounter in the company coffee room. She liked Americanos and I preferred lattes, and we often chatted while we waited for our coffees. Then there were the lunchtime conversations and the occasional takeout dinners we ordered together when we worked late. Kelly never pressed me about my past, but she always listened patiently to everything I had to say. I remember one time we worked late together. We were the only ones left in the office, and it was drizzling outside. We ordered Chinese takeout and sat in the conference room eating and chatting. Somehow, I started telling about Sarah and Nathan. When I talked about the moment I found out about their betrayal, Kelly put down her chopsticks and gently held my hand. Some people leave to make way for someone better. Her voice was soft, but it made me feel unusually warm. Our relationship just deepened little by little. Kelly loves to watch movies, but not in the theater, but at home on the couch. She would prepare a variety of snacks and then wrap herself in a blanket and focus on watching the entire movie. Sometimes she secretly wipes her eyes because of touching episodes and thinks I don't notice. All of these little details are especially cute to me. Just as our relationship was heating up, a letter from my mother broke the peace. It was a normal Tuesday morning. I checked the mailbox as usual and immediately recognized my mother's beautiful handwriting. I put the letter on the dining room table and stared at it for a long time. That envelope was like a ticking time bomb, and I knew the contents would definitely affect my mood. Eventually, I opened the letter. Mother told me that Nathan and Sarah were married. The news hit me like a punch to the stomach and made me instantly nauseous. What shocked me even more was that she also mentioned that she and her father had separated. She didn't go into too many details, just kept emphasizing how much my family needed me this Christmas and pleaded with me to come home, hoping it would be an opportunity to repair the relationship. Kelly was preparing breakfast when I handed her the letter. After reading it carefully, she whispered, "You don't owe them anything. There's no point in pushing it if going back will only hurt you." She said this while placing the fried bacon in front of me, and this everyday warmth made me feel especially grounded. Soon the subject of Christmas was brought up. Kelly invited me to her home in Bay City. "My parents will be happy to see you," she said, "and I think you'll enjoy the traditions of our family." This is the first time I've really looked forward to the holidays because I don't have to deal with those suffocating family gatherings. Kelly's home is a small, two-story building nestled on the outskirts of Bay City, with a well-tended garden out front that looks vibrant even in winter. The house isn't huge, but it's especially cozy. The cinnamon aroma that hits you as soon as you walk in the door is relaxing. Her father, William, a mild-mannered man with round-framed glasses, gave me a warm hug. And her mother, Jennifer, was concerned enough to ask me if I preferred hot chocolate or mulled wine, saying it was a traditional Christmas drink in their family. Christmas Eve was one event after another. In the afternoon, we decorated the Christmas tree together. Kelly retrieves an old trunk from the attic filled with the family's collection of Christmas decorations. Each ornament has its own story, and William and Jennifer take turns telling where the ornaments came from. Then there were baked ginger cookies, and Kelly and her sister Rachel were busy in the kitchen, filling the air with sweet aromas. In the evening, we sat around the fireplace playing board games. There were no awkward silences, no hidden hostility, just laughter here and there. Kelly's brother Michael was particularly good at telling jokes, and his jokes always made everyone laugh. This relaxed atmosphere made me almost forget my past hurts. On Christmas morning, we gathered in our pajamas under the Christmas tree. To my surprise, one of the Christmas stockings hanging under the tree also had my name on it. Jennifer said she prepared it specially and knitted a sweater for me, saying it was a tradition in their family. When I put on that warm sweater, I felt not only warmth, but also the touch of being accepted sincerely. Still, even in this cozy atmosphere, my family of origin flashes into my mind from time to time. I'd wonder what they were doing now, whether my mother was alone in that house full of memories, what motel my father was spending the holidays in, whether Nathan and Sarah were still pretending their marriage was perfect. But I quickly pushed those thoughts aside and focused on the blissful moments of the present. Shortly after returning to Pittsburgh, I received an email from Emma. When I saw her name appear in my inbox, my first reaction was to just delete it. But for some indefinable reason, I clicked on it anyway. The content of the email left me with mixed feelings. The father was now living in a rundown motel, and Nathan and Sarah's lives were falling apart. Emma doesn't go into much detail, but hints that Nathan's job is on the line and Sarah is clearly unhappy in her marriage. She made a point of mentioning that Sarah had started frequenting some of the upscale bars, and Nathan had been moping around all day. I stared at the screen, trying to understand Emma's intention in sending me this email. Is she looking for sympathy? Or is she expecting me to step up to the plate and solve these problems like I used to? If so, she was doomed to disappointment. What am I supposed to say? "I'm sorry, but it's none of my business?" Or, "This is what they deserve?" In the end, I chose to remain silent. No matter how bad their life gets, it's the result of their own choices. They betrayed my trust and are now responsible for their choices. To be honest, there was a part of me that felt a little bit of pleasure. Watching their lives spiral out of control, while I wouldn't cheer their pain, there's no denying that this karma gives me a tinge of balance. Nathan and Sarah ruined my life, and now that their bubble of so-called perfection is starting to burst, it seems like some kind of cosmic justice. That night, Kelly noticed that I was distracted. We were watching a movie in her apartment when she hit pause and turned to look at me seriously. When I told her the contents of Emma's email, she just nodded, her expression both gentle and firm. You've done a lot of hard work to get to this point. Don't let them pull you back into the vortex of the past. The next morning, I deleted Emma's email and blacklisted her address. The decision wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I won't let them manipulate me with guilt or sympathy. I won't let them destroy the peace of mind I've managed to rebuild. That Christmas with Kelly's family became a turning point in my life. For the first time, I really understood what a healthy family relationship was and what true caring was. They taught me that love between family members shouldn't be conditional, shouldn't be based on control and manipulation. Looking back now, I finally realized that sometimes a loss is a gain. It was through the loss of those toxic relationships that I was able to meet truly trustworthy people and achieve true happiness. That past, full of betrayal and hurt, will no longer define my future. I have found my path, and I have Kelly with me on that path to a better tomorrow. Just when I thought life was finally on track, Emma's surprise visit shattered the peace. It was a Saturday morning, and I was about to go for my morning run when I opened the door to see Emma standing in the doorway. Her eyes were red, and she had obviously been crying. For a moment, I wanted to just close the door, but the way she looked made me hesitate. "Logan, I'm so sorry," she cried as soon as she saw me, stepping onto the porch before I had a chance to say anything. "I should have been on your side sooner. I should have done more for you." Her apology came so suddenly that I didn't know how to react for a moment. Throughout the years, Emma has been the one to remain a neutral bystander, never explicitly stating her support for either side. "I broke it off with Nathan," she continued, wiping tears from her eyes, "and Sarah. I can't take it anymore." Her voice was shaking, but her eyes revealed a determination I'd never seen before. "Dad wants to see you too," she added. "Can we sit down sometime and talk? Please." I leaned against the doorframe with my arms wrapped around me. "What do you want, Emma?" She hesitated, tears welling up again. "I just want to talk. Dad too. Is that okay?" I should have just said no. Past experience has taught me that every family meeting ends in greater hurt. But Emma does seem to have a different attitude, and Kelly has been encouraging me to face my past. So, against my inner warning, I agreed. A few days later, we met at a quiet restaurant on the outskirts of town. When I arrived, Emma and father were already sitting there. It was the first time I'd seen my father since that parking lot incident. He looked much older, his hair almost completely white, and the wrinkles on his face were much deeper than I remembered. As I sat down, my father tried to reach out, but eventually just awkwardly put his hand back in his lap. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice low. "I should have done better. It's a good start, better than I expected." But just then the door to the restaurant opened again and my heart sank. Mother walked in, followed by Nathan and Sarah. I immediately stood up, ready to leave. But Jane grabbed my arm. "Please, Logan, just listen to them." Her eyes pleaded with me, but I'd had enough of this trick. Before I could say anything, my mother began her usual sermon. She pressed me into a chair and started going on a long rant about some kind of family healing, saying that Nathan and Sarah had made mistakes, but they were really sorry and it was time to move on. It all sounds so familiar, like a recurring nightmare. "Look, Logan," Nathan spoke up, with that fake apology in his tone that I was all too familiar with. "I know I screwed everything up, but can't we just—" I interrupted. "You guys still don't get it, do you?" My voice was calm, which made everyone in the room freeze. "It's not some little problem that can be fixed. You guys destroyed my trust, and then expect me to pretend nothing happened?" Turning to Emma, I said, "Emma, your apology comes too late, and this meeting proves you're just as hypocritical as they are. You're all in the same boat and good at manipulating people's feelings." I stood up and looked around at each of them. "If you want forgiveness, then go find someone else. I will not be a part of this charade of yours anymore. Also, if you guys try to contact me again, I'll get a restraining order." "That's not a threat, it's a promise." I turned away, ignoring the shouts behind me. This time, I knew it was the last time I would see them. Since then, I've started a real new life. Now, at the age of 28, I feel like I've been through several lifetimes. Kelly and I are engaged. There was no fanfare to the proposal. It was just in our favorite park in Pittsburgh. I've learned that true love doesn't need fancy packaging. When I pulled out the ring, she cried and immediately said yes. At that moment, I felt like I was finally complete. Kelly is not only my fiancée, but the most important partner in my life. She understood every decision I made, supported every choice I made, and never tried to push me back into that hurtful past. And now we are about to have the biggest surprise of our lives, our first child, a boy. Every time I think about becoming a father, I feel both excited and nervous. I never thought I would be ready to take on this role, especially after such a tumultuous family relationship. But Kelly's faith in us gave me courage. We will definitely do our best to give our children a home environment filled with love, respect, and stability that I never got growing up. Before completely cutting ties with my family of origin, I made an important decision to change my last name. It's a decision I've thought about for a long time, and at first thought it might be too extreme or not change anything at all. But as time went on, I felt more and more that the last name felt like an anchor holding me to my painful past, and that I needed to cast it off. It was an amazing feeling standing in the courthouse filling out paperwork for a name change. When the judge finally signed off on it, I felt a wave of relief, like I had finally closed a door I had been afraid to touch. I chose a last name that is meaningful to me, that belongs to a heroic mentor in my life, rather than originating in my family. Kelly fully supports my decision. She even joked that when we got married, she would use my new last name, saying, "We're starting our own legacy." I was deeply touched by this statement. Indeed, we are not perpetuating anything, but creating something entirely new, free of all shadows and hurts. Through some mutual friends, I occasionally hear about the family of origin. My parents were officially divorced and my father was living in a small rental house on the outskirts of town, while my mother was still living in that old house full of memories, trying to maintain the appearance of decency. As for Nathan and Sarah, fate has not been kind to them. They are deep in debt and their marriage is on shaky ground. Sarah loses her job and Nathan's career is in shambles. The irony is that they betrayed me to get together and ultimately couldn't even sustain their own relationship. Emma's life isn't going well either. Her fiancé dumped her a few months before the wedding. I don't know exactly what happened, and frankly, I don't care. She chose to support Nathan and Sarah when it mattered most, and now she has to live with the consequences of her choices. The last direct contact I received from my mother was over a year ago. Another letter pleading for reconnection. I didn't even take it apart, I just threw it in the trash. No matter how much they regret it now, it's a burden they have to carry, not my responsibility. One of the most important lessons I've learned over the years is the importance of setting boundaries. For too long, I allowed my family to manipulate me with guilt and make me responsible for their problems. Cutting ties completely was a tough decision and a painful process, but it was the only way for me to truly move forward. Sometimes I wonder if my family of origin looks back and regrets the choices they made. Do they understand the depth of the damage they have caused? Do they realize what they've lost? But the answers to those questions don't matter anymore. Their remorse or stubbornness is none of my business. The important thing is that I have finally found inner peace. It's not easy to walk away from toxic relationships, especially when they come from family. But sometimes it's the only way to protect yourself and create a real life. Blood ties cannot be the only thing that holds a family together. True family are those who support you, respect you, and love you unconditionally. Now, with Kelly and a baby on the way, I finally have the family I've always longed for. This family is built on trust and honesty, not control and hurt. That's the end of today's story. For more captivating tales, hit subscribe and never miss an episode.